Hello and welcome to the Fish Breeder Show. This is a discussion of the breeding and raising of tropical freshwater fish, and I'm your host, Tim Stanton.
And I'm Jeremy Bosch, and today we're talking about the breeding of the Celestial Pearl Danio.
And this is an episode in a larger series in the breeding and raising of tropical freshwater fish. Additional episodes can be found on YouTube or at our website, thefishbreedershow.tv, fishbreedershow.tv. Jeremy, why don't you tell us about what we're going to talk about today, which is the Celestial Pearl Danio.
Yeah, originally it was known as the Galaxy Rasbora, and that probably went on for about a year until the name was changed. Why the name was changed, who really knows? Because I guess it's more of considered a Danio than a Rasbora, so they wanted to keep it more true. So the name now known for this fish is the Celestial Pearl Danio. The scientific name of the fish, which is again only used for one fish, so when in doubt, use the scientific name. This fish is known as Selecta ichthyes margirtatus, which translates to heavenly fish adorned with pearls.
Right.
And in 2008, the scientific name was actually changed from Danio margirtatus to what it now is, while the common name of Celestial Pearl Danio remained.
Yeah. And when you look at the fish, you can definitely see why it looks like a heavenly fish adorned with pearls.
Very true.
When you start asking yourself, so how do we sex such small fish? To the untrained eye, it can be a bit challenging, but here's some tips to look for. In male CPDs, they will have a red belly and anal fin, and they are very noticeable from the females with that red belly. The females tend to have more of a rounded belly, tend to have more of that almost like trout-shaped look and appearance to them from the side, and they'll have more of a silver belly and anal fin. They'll also have a black gravid spot around their anal fin as well, and that's how you can differentiate the females from the males.
And tank size is very important, we found, with keeping this fish and breeding them. They're schooling or shoaling fish species like other Danios, and so they like to have plenty of room, and they love to swim around in the aquarium. So a 15 or a 20 long is great for a large group of CPDs, as we're going to call them here forward, just to shorten the name a bit here. Add a little bit of dark substrate, and the colors really pop on these guys. What makes these guys different from other Danios and other related species is they're quite shy, especially if you keep them in a single species aquarium. If you add other fish in there with them, some other dither fish, other schooling species, along with floating plants or mops or anything like that, that'll really draw the fish out so they feel comfortable in the aquarium. So without this, they tend to hide quite a bit, and they're very shy fish, and you're not going to enjoy them as much. So
yeah, that's a good point. Now, in terms of water quality that you want for these tanks, they are a Danio, so they're going to be very hardy in terms of pH. You don't need to be too particular on that. One thing that you need to be particular about with CPDs is the water temperature. They are not a warm or hot water fish. You need cool water for these fish, especially if you want them to breed. Yes, they'll live in water that's 74, 76 degrees, but they're not going to be as healthy if they were in more cooler water, which is for CPDs about 72 degrees. So that's the temperature that you want to shoot for in your tank, is about 72 degrees. That's a great water temperature for other fish such as cories, swordtails. They have a lot of fish that are available at your local fish store that would go fine in terms of compatibility if you're looking at a community tank for your CPDs. The water itself can be treated tap water. Again, not too particular with the pH, even for breeding. So in terms of the breeding setup, now you're starting to take a look at least a 2-to-1 ratio of females to males. A bare bottom 10-gallon tank is going to work great. You can have your community of CPDs in the tank. That's fine. In fact, that'll actually increase your odds of finding a breeding pair each week and having some new eggs. So that's more than encouraged. And you want to place the egg trap inside the tank, and the instructions for making the trap are located at our website, which is thefishbreedershow.tv, fishbreedershow.tv. And what the trap itself is really going to look like is what we recommend is a Pyrex baking dish that's about 4 to 6 inches in diameter. And what you do is take the plastic lid, cut that off, and get your aquarium silicone out and adhere a large piece of plastic needlepoint mesh along with a yarn breeding mop or just a large clump of Java moss. And either the yarn from the mop or the Java moss is what the fish will be attracted to and why they'll lay their eggs there. And then it's the benefit of the meshes is then after the eggs have been dropped by the female, they'll actually float through the mesh and they won't get eaten up. If you do it in a tank that's not bare bottomed, what you're often left with is fish choosing other places to breed, such as in a corner with some gravel, and that defeats the purpose of the egg trap.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of what happens after they breed, Jeremy, why don't you talk about what happens then?
Yeah, once the eggs are actually in the trap, about 48 hours later, the eggs will actually start to hatch, and then the fry will drop through the mesh of the trap. So you want to check your trap daily at that point. What you're going to be looking for are fry that resemble black slivers, almost like pieces of glass. The fry are very tiny, and if you see one, there's always likely to be more where you find one. And remove the trap from the tank with the water, and then you're going to use a pipette with the tip cut so you can actually transfer the fry to a breeder net, and then you're going to house the baby fish, the fry, in that breeder net and raise them up in that. It basically insulates them from the parents. You provide kind of a nursery of sorts for the babies to be in, and you can actually keep a bird's eye view on them and how they're doing. And then you're going to want to clean and replace the trap. And the trap will probably contain additional fish if you leave it in the aquarium at all times, and you'll get more and more babies. So,
yep, no, it's a great way to describe what you're going to need to do as a first-time breeder in terms of preparing for those things. So you need to think about those things ahead of time when you want to remove those fry and put them into that baby brine or the baby fry trap afterwards, allow them to do some grow out. The water conditions, like Jeremy said, should mirror that of the parent's tank, so keeping them in the parent's tank is just fine. And so typically they're too small for feeding live foods, even baby brine shrimp. So we recommend the 50 micron Golden Pearl brand powder. And this is a powder that should be mixed in small amounts with water in a shallow dish, and then once the powder is in solution, using that same pipette that you use to free the newborn fry from the egg trap, you can then use that to squirt the Golden Pearl food into the breeder's net where all your newly hatched fry are at, and they're going to lay on the bottom, and then you can feed them a couple times a day, and they'll move, and after a couple weeks they'll start moving.
And after about 2 weeks, like Tim was saying, they're going to start swimming around the aquarium, and that's when you can start incorporating baby brine into their diet. And you're going to want to feed them very limited amounts at first, and then you can always increase it. So when in doubt, go sparingly on the baby brine at first. And after about 6 weeks, they can start taking a little bit more of the baby brine. You're going to want to start incorporating other foods into the diet. You probably would be able to take crushed flake food at that point too. And you can actually place them in a grow out tank for the rest of the way until they reach about 4 months of age, and then you can make a decision if you want to set up a new aquarium for them or place them in with the adults or pass them on to the next aquarist from there.
Yeah,
so.
and Jeremy brings up a good point, which is the gradual changing of the food in which these juvenile fry are being raised on. Your growth rates are going to be largely dependent upon how well of a protein they're able to take in, and that's what's critical for fish to grow. And so baby brine shrimp are going to be great to a certain point, but then after that, to get the proper growth rates, you're going to need to switch them to a man-made fish food. and that could be a fry, it could be a sinking pellet, it could be some mix, but that's going to be critical for keeping them to growth, and then they'll really start to color up and look more like they're full adults after about 12 weeks.
The other thing I'd like to add here, Tim, too, is that tank size can play a factor in that too. I found that baby fish tend to grow better as you move them up in tank size. So if you correlate the baby fish to a larger aquarium, the growth rate seems to increase too, in my experience. So that's another good technique to keep in mind. That if you can move them up into a larger tank as they grow, that'll help increase the growth rate too.
Yeah, and one of the other points too that you make when you go to the larger tanks is that water quality stays nice and stable at a better rate than in a smaller tank, where they're going to spike, where the water decreases in quality as you keep adding food, keep raising your nitrates and nitrites, and unfortunately ammonia as well. And that's why you want frequent water changes on smaller tanks, or smaller changes on larger tanks on a regular basis, to keep that high quality water present so they grow properly.
And once you have a bunch of baby celestial pearl Danios, they're a very highly sought after fish in the hobby as of late. I mean, they really, when they entered the hobby, they were they made a big splash, no pun intended, and everybody's wanted that fish for the longest of times. They still go for a good amount of money in the store. So if you're able to raise up a lot of these guys, there's certainly going to be aquarists that are ready and willing to take them off your hands.
No, that's very true. They're highly sought after. They're not always a common fish in the big box aquarium stores. So if you come to your local fish club auction with several bags of these, they're going to go for a nice price and please a lot of people.
That's true. Very true.
Yep. Well, this concludes this episode of the Fish Breeder Show. Stay tuned to this website for future episodes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.